Is it cold in Richmond today?
Actually, it's nice. It's like high 50s.
Yeah, that's the way it is here. We had a beautiful day yesterday too. My best friend lives in Richmond, by the way.
All right, Grant, take it away, buddy.
All right, thank you, Jason. Good afternoon and welcome back to many of you. We are excited to continue our 2021 NAD Development Series today with session number 2. Just wanted to thank you for joining us and your dedicated support of our NAD community. My name is Grant Kelly. I'm the Senior Associate AD at Johns Hopkins University, and I want to personally thank our NAD Digital Committee members for putting together this series today. We want today's discussion to be interactive, so please feel free to post your questions to the Q&A section, and we'll do our absolute very best to answer them all throughout the session. All right, so leading and moderating our discussion today is Jasmine Coleman. Jasmine joined the University of Richmond Athletics Department in 2008 and has served as the Associate Director of Athletics Development since November 2014. He is responsible for leading the fundraising efforts for athletics to include annual gifts, major gifts, and capital campaigns. A 1998 graduate of Richmond, Jasmine earned a bachelor's degree in speech communication. He has also played in 42 games at defensive end on the Spider football team. Jasmine served as the football radio analyst for the Spiders from 2005 to 2014, including the 2008 national championship season. A native of Richmond, Jasmine attended nearby Henrico High School and currently resides on the South Side with his wife Nico and son Dyson. All right, Jasmine, take it away. Good luck today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to join this esteemed panel that we have, and looking forward to a great conversation. Again, always interesting to have someone give you the introduction, but certainly appreciate that as well, Grant. Well, we're going to get right into it. Really appreciate this group of development professionals joining me for the webinar. And we'll just get started and allow you all to just introduce yourselves, tell us your role, your institution, and maybe a little bit about yourself. And we'll get started with Emily if you want to start off.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for having this panel today. Hopefully everybody gets 1 or 2 nuggets out of it that helps at your campus. My name is Emily Boone. I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Development at the University of Denver, and I oversee our development strategy, specifically the fund. I carry a portfolio of 75 to 100 donors. I'm our liaison with University Advancement, and I'm also a secondary sport administrator for men's basketball and women's lacrosse. And I've been at Denver for 18 months and was previously at the University of Miami for 7 years and the University of North Carolina for 10 years. Also, our kids are on round 3 of virtual school. So if you see them popping in and out, that's just life right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And we'll talk later about that transition from Miami to Denver during this particular time of the year as well. Suzette, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Excuse me. I'm sorry that we're joining with a webinar that talks about the difficulties we've been having with COVID. And now all of a sudden I'm having difficulty speaking. But my name is Suzette Mooney, and I've been with App State for about 23 years. I'm the Associate AD for Development in athletics, and I oversee the major gift component. I have a small team of 3 officers, and then I also help co-manage the annual fund side of things. I've been with Appalachian my entire career, and that includes my undergrad and master's program. So I haven't been a lot of places in terms of college athletics, except for the places that my university's taken me, which hasn't been to Denver or Oregon yet, but has been to Richmond a few times. So I look forward to talking with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And last and certainly not least, Jeff Pivot.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me today. Excited to be part of this group. My name is Jeff Pivot. My title role is Assistant Athletic Director for Integrated Revenue Strategies at Oregon State. What that really means, fancy way to say oversee the annual fund. But like Emily, I have a major gift portfolio, about 95 folks as well. Work very closely with our ticket office, multimedia rights partner, and our OSU Foundation on how we all work together, and that's hence the integrated approach there. So I started my career at the University of Wyoming, graduate from there, and then also I worked at Arizona State for a few years before coming here to Oregon. So look forward to talking with you all today. Thanks again for having me.
Wow, perfect. Well, we'll jump right into our questions again that we've sort of prepared for our conversation. Just again, as a reminder to our audience, please use the Q&A function at the bottom to offer some questions, and we'll try our best to introduce those into the conversation as well. But let's jump right into the topic of the last 12 months for all of us, which is the impact of the pandemic on all the work that you all do. If you could give us a little insight into some of those impacts over the last year that you all have been dealing with at your respective institutions. Emily, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, sure thing. I think if you look at it organizationally, overall in athletics and recreation at Denver, we're down about 30 people, and that's probably a starting staff of 130. So we're down quite a few. And that's either been through eliminated positions, extended furloughs, or frozen positions. And then we've also been through 2 budget cut cycles. Specifically on the development side, we're down from 6 people to 3, and it's the 3 of us toward the top that are left. And I laugh because that means we've been getting in the weeds a lot more than we ever have before, but we're doing it together. And it's created some really great conversations about how we can get better and more efficient right now. And then our vision for the next year, the next 2 years, or the next 5 years of where we want to be. And it's funny because you see all these sort of internal things happening where your salary's been cut or positions have been lost. And the irony is that we're doing awesome on the fundraising side. We've already raised 25% over our annual fund goal. We've closed 10 major gifts, and we have a pending 7-figure gift that's not only going to be transformational for one of our sports, but it will get us to our goal across campus. And I think our success has really come down to having a very clear message, creative stewardship, and asking different people in different ways. And quite candidly, being unapologetic in asking for money and being clear where that where donors' impact is going.
No, that's fantastic. Congratulations on the fundraising success, and we'll get back to that conversation about some of those successes. So kind of put a pin there. Suzette, tell us a little bit about how this past year has been for you in your organization and your team.
Okay, thank you. Very similar to Emily, I think our shops are pretty much close to being the same size. We have around 130, and we have between lost, furloughed, frozen, at least 20 positions, and maybe not in total, but close to that. But my particular department, we lost 3. So we're down 2 donor relations and major gifts and an annual fund. So, but luckily, our athletic director has been fantastic because he went to our chancellor and said, we need to make sure we're feeding what feeds us, and that is the major gift and the annual fund component. So we just got approval to hire at least 2 of the 3 positions back. Our entire athletic department has furloughed through the summer, and many of those positions are staying frozen for now. Our revenue loss is anywhere between 8 and 9 million. To a school like Appalachian, that's a lot of money. So when you have a smaller budget, a revenue shortfall in that range is going to be quite devastating to our fiscal year coming, and then probably a couple of years after. But the good thing is, like Emily said, we have been very successful in our major gift fundraising. Our annual fund is just above what it was last year at this time. Our major gifts are well above, especially in the commitment level. So that's what we found, and we will talk about this a little bit later, but we did find that we were being a little still in our aggressiveness for fundraising. And once we started getting back to the swing of asking, they were giving. so we're fortunate in that respect, but we are still looking at a lot of, we did a 20% budget cut across the department, and that includes in development also. And our coaches, many of them right now, our head coach, our athletic director took pay cuts. It's been all the way through. So, but we're making it. We're going to get there, as everybody else will.
Absolutely. And, Jeff, certainly want to hear kind of how Oregon State has sort of handled this past year as well, and some of the things that you've been focused on over the last year as you move through this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you. We were fortunate within our Beaver Nation team, which is we're all employees of the OSU Foundation, that we didn't experience some of the cuts that our athletics colleagues did receive, and some of the layoffs and positions that weren't brought back there. So we have been operating under a hiring freeze, though. We've got 3 positions within our office that we haven't been able to hire. But the one thing I want to lead with all this is we've all kind of alluded to it, is I do feel like us as a staff has got much more connected. And it seems so odd to say, well, we're all working from our home offices or our, other locations, or even if you are able to be in your office, but you have to have your doors shut. It's just been very nice to have everybody just seems so much more connected. So I think that's one positive that's come out of it that I hope we continue to move forward with. In terms of, again, the athletic department staff did lose some staff. And so I can't say enough about how they all have come together, and just kudos to my colleagues on what they've been through, and wearing multiple hats and being in the trenches, maybe more so than they had been, but just thankful for all their efforts there too. Absolutely.
And I kind of want to stay there for a little bit, Jeff, with sort of the organizational connectivity that you sort of mentioned. Talk a little bit about your staff as far as how you guys had the ability to stay connected, adjust, improvise, maybe speak a little bit about some of those adjustments that you made organizationally to keep everybody connected, keep everyone together. And then I'll ask our other members as well, our other panelists as well, sort of how you all pivoted a little bit from a staff responsibility sort of a manner as well. But Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did a lot of the things that a lot of us probably have. We got really knowledgeable on Slack and Teams and multiple different things like that, and how we make sure to keep those water cooler conversations going. That was important to us. And I would say operationally, we made a big change, and this goes into the staffing aspect of who's actually doing the operations. But we took an integrated ticket approach where folks will not only renew their tickets, but also make their seat contributions at the same time. And I know that there's probably a lot of us on this call here that's saying, I'm surprised you haven't done that yet, but it has been a practice at Oregon State that we hadn't done that. But what that did is it put a lot of that responsibility and partnership on collecting seat contributions and the required donations on our Pac-12 sales, outbound sales team. And then it's allowing our development staff to focus on philanthropy. So we're not all the way there yet, and I can get into it a little bit more later, but I would say that's one of the biggest organizational changes that we have made to kind of shift some responsibilities around. And then we've also looked at some different alternative revenue opportunities, and whether that's our Pac-12 sales staff or some others that might not be front lines, just shifting their attention on philanthropy too. When there wasn't tickets to sell, we really were able to educate that team. They had a great understanding of it already, but we were able to educate that team more. And I think it's clicked with them. It's starting to click more with our donors. And to speak to the point, fundraising has still been, relatively successful, even in this odd time.
That's wonderful. Emily, I know in sort of preparation for the webinar, you had mentioned kind of your staff, and I remember taking a particular note about some of the folks when they kind of came back, whether it was furloughed or whether there was some adjustments, and the responsibilities shifted a little bit, whether it's because you had a smaller team or just because as folks maybe were introduced back into the day-to-day activities, things were a little bit different because now COVID and you had sort of fully integrated throughout the department, and you guys were doing things differently than you had just 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, I think that, our approach to everything has changed this year. And I hope we take some of that with us. I'll be fine leaving some of it behind too. But, I think one of the big changes in our department has been an all hands on deck mentality. And everybody has to buy into that. There is no job too big or too small, no matter your title this year. And that's come from the top, from our athletic director, Carlton Creech, and it's come consistently top. And, our motto this year is survive to thrive. And it's something we talk about every week. It's not something we talked about at a kickoff meeting in September and forgot. It's literally something we come together and talk about every week. And when you use that phrase to frame how you're going to approach a challenge or a setback or an opportunity, it really kind of encourages collaboration across, all units. I'll give you guys an example. We were talking about this earlier in the week. I moonlight as our symptom checker at basketball games, gymnastics, volleyball, lacrosse, and it's literally taking temperatures, making sure people are doing their online symptom checks. And it's not donors, it's our stat crew, it's our sports information crew, it's gymnastics judges, which is, it's not ideal by any means. And our business office, they're disinfecting the locker rooms before basketball games. I mean, people are doing a variety of things because all of those third-party entities were cut during our budget process. So I see it personally as not ideal, but it's the first step. It's our first step back to competition. And that's going to get us to the next step, which is finally inviting folks back, and hopefully I can get out of all that stuff. But that's, when you look, it's a gradual, progress back to some sort of normalcy. But it really is all centered around this survive to thrive mentality.
Absolutely. Suzette, how, with some of the changing in the dynamics of your department, the number of staff available, what are some changes and some impacts that you guys have dealt with, and how have you I love the survive to thrive. How did you all survive?
Well, our motto has been keep climbing or app strong, app resilient. So I think every institution probably has 3 or 4 that we all are trying to put in our taglines. We were a small shop to begin with. So I think in some shape or form, we're used to kind of all pitching in, all hands on deck, but this was a little different in that the responsibilities were very different, in that what Emily was saying, whether it was taking temperatures, whether it was watching the door, policing the elevator, making sure people have their masks on when they were in a facility. We were all doing it. The changes were somewhat organic, in that, we've all got pitched in and got the job done. And whether or not it was our assigned responsibility or not. So, I had one thing that came up in the last week or so. Someone asked me, they said, do you believe, what did it say? I think, let's see someone asked me if I'm the same person pre-pandemic. And I felt like that was a really hard question, because I'm not sure that any of us are the same as we were pre-pandemic. But I do believe we've all grown, we've all designed, practices that will make us better. And I think we're all going to come out stronger and better people at the very least. So, and I think that just goes back to, the culture of what we do every day, and just trying to make it through something that we hope is going to change. But at the same time, I do believe we have instituted a good number of things that did make us better, and we will continue with.
I love that. And, I think each of you have mentioned some success stories, and I definitely want to dive a little deeper into those. And I think our audience would love to hear that. I think everyone's talked a little bit about, the fundraising dollars, especially annual fund, have been positive. And Emily, you even mentioned, there's a big transformational gift that you guys are working on. Talk a little bit about those successes that you're seeing, and then which of those successes that you're seeing do you think will transition into, sort of post-pandemic?
I'll take that one since you called me out on it.
Mhm.
That was the point. That was the point.
So, and I want to zoom out for a second, because when I think about this question, I think about it in two steps. And the first is find your purpose. And I'm not talking about life right now because life is crazy. But what I found throughout all of this is when I'm in survival mode, I revert to what do I do? How do I do it? And then I get to why. And we all know the why is supposed to be first. But during this time period, when you try to think about your why, it's really hard to pin down. It's almost too ambiguous. So when I think about my day or my week or even my hour, I think, what is my purpose in this moment? We've got so many different things on our plate, wearing so many different hats. What is my purpose right now? So one week, my purpose might be, we got to get cash in the door. What is the process to get cash in the door? The next week, my purpose might be, we've got to engage, we've got to keep people in the fold, keep them thinking about Denver athletics, or just bring some joy through, alumni happy hours or things of that nature. So I think is kind of zooming out, and, if any of you are dealing with, decreased staff or decreased salary, like, just know you're not alone, and we're all going through this together, but encourage you to kind of narrow it down to, like, what's your purpose in this moment? The second thing is, what that process looks like. So how do you reach your metrics, and how do you reach those numbers? And we looked at it as a three-pronged attack. We were very quiet from March until September, because again, you were kind of, is it okay to ask? Is it not okay to ask? You just really weren't sure where people were with everything. And by August or September, we had a very good gauge on where our department was budget-wise and what our needs were. And once we started soliciting in September, again, we were going to be unapologetic about it, still empathetic, but unapologetic. And the first wave was a general COVID relief fund solicitation that really ripped the Band-Aid off of a lot of our communications and became very transparent about what our department was facing and sharing that with people. The second part of that was doing a very sports specific and coach specific solicitation. We're very sports specific centric, which is a great opportunity to be able to educate people on the direct impact on the team. And I'm talking about food, sports medicine. I mean, all the team travel, all these really basic things that for years had kind of been a given in our budget, all of a sudden weren't. So when you're looking at crafting, that message, it was very clear what our student athletes needed to still have a positive experience. And then the last wave of solicitations was a virtual season ticket holder package. And I know a lot of different schools did that. We had just the previous spring decided to we didn't drop the seating donation, but we kind of rolled it in to one ticket cost, which I don't think I would have done in hindsight knowing this. But what we did was we created an entirely different benefit structure, thinking that that group of people are motivated to give differently, and asked them to either donate what they had already given in season tickets to our COVID relief fund, or if they hadn't renewed yet, donate what they would have given toward that fund. And then, sort of you get into different stewardship opportunities, whether it's through Chalk Talks, sports specific alumni happy hours, which then have just sort of have an opportunity to take, sort of a life of their own.
No, that's great. And you kind of touched on the virtual season ticket holder, aspect. And I know, Jeff, you already kind of mentioned some of the successes and some of the, things that you all have done differently in that ticket holder space. But what are some of the other sort of highlights in this year that you guys look back on like that was a really good decision that was really successful? And are there things that you're going to move forward into the sort of post-pandemic era and continue to apply?
Yeah, good question. You know, I would say our biggest success has just been not stopping. A couple weeks ago, there was an announcement that we received an anonymous gift to move forward with our Completing Research Stadium project. And, you know, from the beginning of this, we looked at COVID as an opportunity to not necessarily stop. We, of course, had to slow down and look at some things if timing was right. But, you know, the decision was made not to stop. And that overall stadium project is going to be something that will greatly benefit and put us in a situation to be more successful moving forward. And it's created a lot of buzz, you know, at a time when people haven't had the engagement that has been an opportunity for them to get excited about something. And it was alluded to earlier, we have seen people who want to support now. And, you know, Emily mentioned the ticket credits and the opportunities there. And we went through that extensively. And I would say that some of those folks and donors that, you know, we might not have known as philanthropic donors in the past showed their cards a little bit to us. And, you know, they decided to turn a one-time, you know, ticket purchase that was meant to go to the ticket office into a donation. And for somebody to do that in a time like now means a lot, right? So it shows their passion. So, you know, not to use it against them, but I know they showed their cards that they have a philanthropic interest, and we'll continue to look at those opportunities and, you know, pull at some heartstrings a little bit more than we have in the past to ask for more of that philanthropic support. So, and then Jasmine, another one that we've looked at, I mentioned some alternative revenue opportunities. We've recently partnered with Caring Scent, which I was starting to make a little bit of, becoming a little bit more known in the industry. And just in the last week that we've released an opportunity there for engagement and donations through our baseball program and their success, we've seen good response. And, you know, that's something that I do anticipate that we could continue. Originally, I looked at it as an alternative for single game sales. You know, we don't have that opportunity for single game sales. We need that revenue. But it's proven successful, you know, enough in this that we're going to have some serious conversations with our department and say, is this something that we're going to want to continue? And to start now, I think it's going to be something that we will. So I absolutely think we've learned from this opportunity, and, you know, now is not a time to take our foot off the gas and moving forward with that empathy, but still focus on philanthropy.
I love that. You hit on an area that is meaningful to the University of Richmond. I hope my advancement systems folks are listening, because Caring Scent is something we kind of have looked into, but have had some reluctance within the university to kind of take on some of the aspects of that. So I might be talking to you offline, Jeff, about that. But good to hear again, trying to be, really look for creative ways to move your program and your departments and your athletic departments forward and meet the vision of your ADs. Just as a side note, you mentioned something about sort of the reluctance, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, being a little reluctant to really be aggressively engaging with solicitations. And we had our second annual Giving Day scheduled for April last year. And so you can imagine the entire university, it was a university-wide Giving Day. We were all on pause, and just, you know, no one really had any comfort level or any stability in moving forward with a Giving Day. We kind of took a big leap of faith, and moved it to late May. And we went forward with it and had an unbelievable response from our supporters and our donors and our alums. So again, as nervous as we were going into it, it did, as you said, sort of reveal the true philanthropic nature, the true supportive nature of our fans, of our alums, that they still wanted to be there for us, and they still wanted to contribute and help us kind of get through this. And that was a wonderful moment and a wonderful thing to see. So certainly attest to what you're sharing with us, Jeff. I appreciate that. That was great. We talk a little bit about obviously some of the early impacts of the pandemic, but I think we also want to look at sort of how we've adjusted a little bit to some of those challenges. And Suzette, one of the things that I think you were talking about that really resonated with me when we were talking earlier was about rebranding. University of Richmond has made a transition from a membership-based sort of model and benefit-based model to really honing in on our philanthropic message. And we changed from the Spider Club to the Spider Athletic Fund a couple years ago. And so the pandemic hit at a time where we were trying to get our new brand out there. And I'll say, I think that our virtual presence, because everyone was virtual, I think it really helped us to re-educate our donors on what our needs are within the athletic department, the importance of an unrestricted gift, the importance of sport-specific support. So I know you mentioned kind of some of those types of things within App State. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you guys have done in that space and some of the messaging and even rebranding that you all went through?
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. We did, we just launched our Mountaineers Athletic Fund rebrand, if you will, last week. And now, mind you, we had the idea from this probably a year and a half ago. So it was pre-pandemic, but we kept going with it because we had some momentum, and we were trying our best not to let the pandemic stop the momentum we had. So we kept pushing forward, and we were getting a lot of pushback because your donors are looking at you in a different microscope now. And so they're like, what do you mean you're changing what's been successful over the last 100 years? And that was one of the messages that we had to get out there, is that we're not changing, we're just defining. And we're defining our major gift component and our annual fund. Everyone thinks that we are an annual fund, and they don't necessarily think about the major gift side. So I think this rebranding has done a great job for us in terms of it, at least helping the donor decide, where it is he or she wants to be. And they can be in both. And that's what most people are anyway. They just didn't realize it. And we also transitioned to Paciolan, our ticketing system, and with a new website. So the website launches Monday. So, but it's going to be a very professional and modernized look for us. And we are looking so forward to the ease of the use for our donor to be able to find exactly what they need when they need it. And honestly, I'm not so sure we could have accomplished all this if we had been full steam ahead, normal operations, because you don't stop your normal day operations to do these kinds of things. And we were able to do it and get our whole team involved when a lot of the times our whole team is all over the country, so it really was a blessing in disguise. Hoping that next week, once we do the final launch for the website, that it all goes well. And then, in talking about the initiative, we launched Keep Climbing, which was our initiative that Emily was kind of talking about. One thing that we realized that once we launched the Keep Climbing, that people were giving. And what we found is that people did want to give to certain buckets. And so we gave them the buckets, and then they chose. And one thing that we did find that resonated with a lot of people is that our nutrition and mental health wellness of our student athlete. And with the climate of everything that's been going on that for the last 6 months, it was a great move on our part in terms of trying to get some support there. And now it's continuing. So we've raised a little over $1 million, and these are smaller gifts, which is good, because that means that the quantity of givers has really been a good point for us. But yeah, the rebrand has gone great. We're so excited about it. And I've been with Appalachian long enough to know that I've wanted this for a while. So we finally got it to go, and we're excited.
That's great. We actually have a question that came in through the Q&A, just a little bit about educating donors. And I know we mentioned that in the rebranding that we went through with the University of Richmond. Like, it was really important for us to educate our donors about the different areas that they could support. Did you all was that a focus of your rebrand? And were there some specific things that you all did to make sure that you drove home that sort of educational aspect of kind of what's important to App State?
Well, and the important thing about what I'm getting ready to talk about is that we reached a number of people that we would not normally reach at one time. And because of the Zoom process, we did town home meetings, we did, smaller scale focus meetings where we went through the outline of our rebrand, and then we just opened it up for questions, and so, but during that process we found out a lot about, they didn't really understand what was going on during the ticketing process, or maybe they didn't understand that we needed support for nutrition, or what does it mean when a student athlete is at risk in any shape or form. And then the whole diversity and inclusion aspect, those came into our town halls. So it really wasn't, it did overturn some things for us, but more than anything, I mean, one of our town meetings, we had like 110 people join, and we did 8 of them. So they were all very good. And also it gave people, they made them feel comfortable, because our athletic director was on and he openly talked about the critical budget, that we're getting ready to go through, and the budget cuts, and they asked questions and we answered. And so it's not something that we would be able to do, get in front of a podium and ask 100 people to come see us, so that really helped us in the rebrand too.
That's great. Thank you.
Jasmine, I'd like to piggyback on that question a little bit.
Please.
I think when you're thinking about education, and particularly stewardship and engagement, finding opportunities to get your donors in front of your coach and in front of your student athletes, whatever that looks like. Because I can tell them and I can educate them, but it means so much more to have that relationship with the coach. And one thing we started doing over the summer was sports specific alumni happy hours. And it was really just as a way for everybody to come together, because we just found that people just were seeking human engagement. And during those calls, I would find myself thinking, this is so great. Like, we've got these unbelievable alums. I had no idea. How can we keep this going, and how can we keep them coming back beyond just an update on the team? So we started developing sports specific alumni networks, and it looks different from program to program. But for example, women's lacrosse has an entire board of directors that's all alums, and they sort of dictate what that programming is going to look like. So there's a mentoring aspect between an alum and a student athlete, which is, just connecting that alum back to the program. There is a professional development aspect for current alums, and that can be broken down by sector. It can be broken down by topic. I mean, we've had topics on that about, how to fail and get back up. It can be lots of different things. And then also, the fun side, like, we can't have them to campus right now. We hope we can't wait till we do. But, just that reconnection has been fascinating to watch, and just organically leads to conversations about, gosh, this is so great. What do you guys need? What do you need from us? I mean, that's like every development officer's dream, right? So, but you've got to put yourself in that position. And sometimes it means taking yourself out of it and making sure you're coaching student athletes.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was great. We're starting to get a few questions from the Q&A, and I want to try to get as many of those as possible. One question that just came up really goes back to something that we spoke about earlier in some of the impacts to your departments, and it's specifically about the budget reductions that many of you have seen, or some of you have seen, and how you were still able to engage with your constituents with reduced budgets. How were you still able to steward your donors, still staying within sort of the new confines of that budget restrictions that you have? And Emily, or anyone that may want to jump in, Suzette, I'm not sure who might want to start, but I thought that was a really good question from our Q&A.
Jasmine, I know you didn't mention my name here, but I'm happy to.
Did I not say Jeff? I meant to say Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to piggyback a little bit off of what Emily just mentioned on that stewardship side, and I saw that question come in. We have looked to numerous people within the department. We kind of took this vision of not just your fundraising staff or fundraisers in the department, right? And we all are fundraisers, and we all can engage. So as donations came through, whether it was through our credit system and tickets or whether it was through a philanthropic gift, we looked outside of our office, and that was, our athletic directors, executive staff, or all the way down to some of our entry-level staff members were handwriting and calling people and thanking them. We all know in our industry that handwritten thank you card can go a long way. Now, was it a little bit difficult in coordinating who sends what and who's calling what and who can go into the office and mail these things? Of course it was. But it was a good opportunity, and we received some feedback from folks. It was still nice to hear from us and that personal touch. And I'll go as far as our coaching staff was in it. Coach Jonathan Smith was making phone calls to people and thanking them for their gifts. And we tiered those obviously on who they were contacting, but just thankful to everyone in our department that was able to participate in those stewardship efforts.
That's great. I just piggyback off of kind of what you were saying. We did a really good job, at least in my opinion. I think we did a really good job with our Giving Day. But the part that was a silver lining was that, to be honest, our coaches didn't have games going on. Like, we really had their undivided attention when we did Giving Day. So to your point, our coaches were reaching out to donors, were emailing donors, were connecting with donors during this sort of Giving Day campaign that we went into. And the success really was because the entire department was behind it. And again, I think we've all mentioned that sort of throughout the webinar. It's just sort of that team approach, that everyone sort of, picking up and jumping in wherever they're needed. And again, the pandemic, although has had so many, unfortunate ramifications to athletic departments, I do think that sort of all in, all together sort of bond has really been one of the positives. We really have had to pitch in and do a lot of different things. But that was a really successful aspect of Giving Day, is because our coaches were honed in. They saw the success of it. Now that they're back competing, I know that it's in their mind that they want to do as much as they can because they saw the rewards of their efforts. So
I think too, when you're looking at decreased resources in athletics, make sure you look across campus. Diversity advancement. They're not seeing some of those things. And, we're lucky we've got a good relationship with them, and they've taken on, some of the nitty gritty stewardship aspects of our operation, which has been wildly helpful. And they also have access to a lot of really cool platforms. I don't know if anybody on this call is familiar with ThankView, but ThankView has just saved us, because in areas where our athletics communication staff can't produce videos, I can go in and splice videos together, and it looks pretty cool. So, platforms like that are, your advancement team often owns and pays for those, so you can use it too.
Yeah, we just started using ThankView ourselves. And actually our donor relations person is no longer with us, but the several videos that she did got recognized through ThankView. And so they gave us a free subscription for a certain amount of time in athletics, as something to promote for athletics departments to have ThankView. But no, our videos were really well received. And the other thing that we did across campus is our alumni office has been great to us. They, not having the ability to tailgate and not having the majority of our fans in-house, they developed a tailgate in a box. So they would mail out to, or it was free, but you paid for shipping. So we ordered, 300 boxes or whatever, and we sold them out in 2 hours. And inside the box was just tailgate stuff, whether it was, pom-poms, or it was a sign, or it was, a mixed drink recipe or in a non-alcoholic drink recipe, a tailgating food recipe. And everything was really, really good. And then we also did hoops at home for basketball. So those things have been very successful. And our alumni office has taken every opportunity they can to include athletic content. Normally they would maybe have a blurb, but at least now they're, saying, think about our athletic friends and come out or actually go on to ESPN3 and watch the women play tonight or, whatever. And we hadn't had that support throughout. And we've been just so thankful for it. And even in the central development, they've even included in some of the thank you emails that go out when a donation comes through. Thank you for your support to athletics. And it's coming from our vice chancellor in advancement. And she's, says, she might put one sentence in there that our one of our athletes won the triple jump in the whatever meet that she was in. And, all of that has been great for us. So the stewardship level across campus has been helpful.
Suzette, to piggyback off that real quick, Jasmine, if I may, I think this is a great opportunity for all of us. And Suzette, you hit it on the head. I mean, this is an opportunity that we all look across, other departments and how we work together. I mean, a lot of these engagements that we're doing, whether they're coming from the Alumni Association or the ticket office or the development office, they're all received as one for our donors. And that engagement goes a long way with them. So, I saw a question that came in here about what's one thing that we hope to continue through here. And that is definitely one that I'd encourage all of us to, is to keep looking across the aisle at those other departments and see how you can speak to your donors and season ticket holders and fans as one, because they see us all as one. So how can we continue to deliver that product to them as one?
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you for grabbing that one out of the chat, out of the Q&A. And want to shift just a little bit, because we have just a few more minutes left in our time to kind of hone in on some of those aspiring development professionals, those young development professionals that are listening in, that are tuning in, that are members of NAD. And can you kind of give, from your perspective, some advice? I mean, right now, we've started this conversation talking about reduced departments, reduced positions, hiring freezes. But if you are someone who is looking to make a move, looking to grow professionally, whether it be through responsibilities or through a new opportunity, maybe even at a different institution, how would you advise someone who's in that position, who's looking to make a change and grow professionally? How would they go about that in this climate? Jeff, do you want to kind of, you had the microphone, you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now's a really good time to hone in on your professional development plan. There might not be an opportunity right now, but map out your development plan. I've got a former colleague who's an athletic director now at Western Carolina, who told me, map this out and look at your current roles and what are your current roles that you can do and hone in on to get to your next one. Essentially, what do you need to learn now to help you get to that next role? And we've all heard it. Focus on what you're doing right now to help you get to the next one. But there is also that opportunity in there to be cognizant and be aware of what roles and knowledge you need to have at the next step, and start reaching out to some mentors. We all have people within the industry that you can reach out to. And if you're new, I think, not to speak for everyone on here, a lot of us will welcome calls. That's one thing I've learned about this industry is people are willing to say hello and to help each other and educate each other. So make some new connections. And if there's something on your current task list or something that you think you need to, have a little bit of knowledge before you get into that next one, reach out to somebody and, try to set up regular meetings with them and just hone in on that development plan and continue your growth. And the opportunities are going to come. The jobs will come back. But now's a good time to continue to improve your own skills.
Yeah, piggybacking off a little bit what you said, Jeff, one of the things that I've tried to instill in my staff is to continue professional development, like you said, but like be a part of a program that's in your community, or, you know, that's maybe there's a leadership program offered on campus that you can be a part of. Do something within like this that we're doing, be a panelist, submit, applications for papers and things like that to be written. And then also, I mean, the podcast nation is wonderful right now. And if you have anything you're questioning, you can find a good podcast for it. And that is something that I've been taking advantage of. And in terms of the jobs in general, they're all going to come back, college athletics. It may not be the same as we knew it, but it's definitely going to come back. And so will the jobs. And, my biggest advice is always just be as aggressive and take the initiative to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I think those are all great comments. Emily, do you any thoughts from your perspective? Or
I was just going to say, at some point we will be hiring more positions, so you can proactively reach out to me. Resume. But no, I think, all of those are awesome points, and just remember when you're reaching out and building your network, ask that person you're talking to, hey, can you give me 2 to 3 other people that you could connect me with? And that it broadens, not only what you will learn, but just the more people get to know you and hear about you and learn about you, the better position you're putting yourself in.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there was no playbook, as they say, for the pandemic. The one thing that I thought was consistent, and even when I speak to my athletic director, that they're reaching out to other schools, they're reaching out to their counterparts at other institutions to understand what they're doing, how they're thinking about addressing certain challenges, especially in the pandemic. And I think that's a great way to very easily build your network, is to reach out to your counterparts, whether you're looking in your state, whether you're looking just in your division or in your conference or what have you. And just, again, you're talking about the business and talking about how you're meeting these challenges. And I've noticed that people are more than willing to have those conversations, and those relationships seem to be sustainable and end up being the folks that you kind of grow with and you all continue to network with. So, not that I need to make a plug for NAD or anything, but obviously NAD is another great way to stay connected and network and continue to grow professionally as well. So we've got a few more minutes, and one question that popped up that I thought was really interesting. I know myself and our team, we have portfolios, assigned prospects within sort of how we do business. And in particular, when your staffs have shifted and maybe been reduced, how do you maintain those portfolios, assigned portfolio relationships? And for those that have those, and your team has those assigned prospects, how did you all adjust and how did you all manage through that? And anyone who wants to take that question, I know that one just kind of came from the chat.
Well, I can speak to it a little bit. When we lost our major gift officer, honestly, we just, the 3 of us sat down and looked at the particular prospects that were kind of in the works or hot, if you will, and we reassigned them. And then I made sure that each of them reached out to the prospects just to introduce themselves, saying, I'm sorry that we lost an employee, but I'm here for you. I'm happy to step in and do what you need to do. And then, for myself personally, I mean, I have a pretty large portfolio. I'm anywhere from 85 to 200, depending on the time, in terms of prospects. But one of the things that I did in the beginning, because I traveled a good bit. And so then all of a sudden I was like, what am I going to do now? I can't go anywhere. And so I literally opened my prospect portfolio and I just built out a paragraph or 2 of what's happening, and thanking them for being who they've been over the years and how their support over the years is helping to keep us afloat today, and it wasn't a solicitation at all. It was just to keep you informed, let you know what's going on, and hopefully it's going to get better soon. But if not, we appreciate everything you've done, that kind of thing. Now we're slowly getting back out. Still not a whole lot, but I think once the vaccine starts getting out a little more, we'll be able to travel some. But so yeah, that's what we did anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult thing I think right now to sort of manage when you're looking at planning out your time and it just takes discipline. And even if it's setting aside, an hour or two to do that sort of thing, I personally struggled with, over the summer, you kind of do that. You did that initial outreach when everything started happening, and then like you didn't have anything to talk about for a while because there weren't any sports, and I was, still relatively new in my position. So I was still doing a lot of that introduction and sort of qualification work. So you just kind of got to find, man, the people that were responsive, like I'm their best friend, and it is helpful now, being able to invite people to games. I mean, we're not selling tickets, we're just inviting donors. But it's wonderful to see people and they're eager to do it. I feel I have a new appreciation for seeing them. And I feel like they've got a new appreciation for being at an athletics event. I think the difficult part for me is being disciplined about putting in contact notes and, things like that, but encourage people to find time to do it because campus looks at that sort of thing.
Well, I think we're getting close to time, but I want to end on a positive note. Not that all of this hasn't been extremely helpful, and I hope all of our attendees are getting a lot of information out of this conversation, out of our panelists. But I want to end with our sort of last question, which is, what are you doing to motivate your team or to keep your team motivated? What are some of the things that you guys are doing to keep morale up as much as possible, to keep everyone engaged and still having that same energy and excitement around athletics that we all sort of brought us to this profession and certainly to this industry? Can you tell us a little bit about what are you guys doing to motivate your teams, and how are you addressing that within your departments? Jeff, you want to kick us off there? Since I forgot you the last time, I'm coming to you first this time.
No, you're good. You're good. We try to celebrate everything. Whether that's fundraising success. We've had a couple work anniversaries that I know our staff and our managers have celebrated. And some of the personal things. This sounds so silly. I grew up a '90s Chicago Bulls fan, and I got a coworker who's a Utah Jazz fan, but I find myself celebrating their success as a professional sports team because we're connecting with each other, right? So it's just celebrate whatever you can. If it's you've got staff or coworkers who have kids that now they're getting back into being able to go to school, or they're being able to get back out on their youth sports, celebrate that stuff with them and just really build those connections with your colleagues, whether they report to you or you report to them. Just keep celebrating. We're going to get back and celebrate in the stands someday, but keep remote celebration to keep morale high.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that, celebrating. I would add, just let people be flexible. I mean, folks are juggling a lot of different things right now just in life. So be understanding that their day is not going to look like your typical 8 to 5. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to that. I'm not sure. We work a lot in college athletics, but I think this is a time to reevaluate the wellness factor for all of us in athletics and what that looks like going forward. And I also think making sure everyone's involved in decision making, make sure everybody's got a seat at the table, because everybody's doing everything, and it means so much more for everybody to have a voice and move in a direction collaboratively.
Awesome. Suzette, any last words that you'd like to offer?
Well, just as what both of them said, celebrating is probably the best thing you can do for your staffs and for yourself, even, because hopefully our staff is a reflection of our leadership and what we're doing. But we every other week we have a meeting, and our entire development office gets together, and I've made sure that our development staff gets recognized for what they've done, because they're raising money, and it's very different in the athletic area than in the academic area during this. And so that, and then also, like Emily said, being flexible, but flexible with schedules, but also flexible with personalities. Not everybody's is the happiest they've ever been staying at home every day. And so that's what I've said, give each other a break. and know that these are tough times and it affects everyone differently. And if you're unhappy, make sure you say, and that's one thing that I said that I started doing with mine is having a 45-minute session with them and said, this is your time. We can talk about social, we can talk about development, we can talk about the weather, it's whatever. But we're going to sit here and look at each other for 45 minutes and hopefully we'll get something accomplished. So.
Well, I cannot thank you all enough, Emily Boone, Suzette Monty, Jeff Pivot, for joining us for this webinar. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I know I took some notes as much as I could in between questions, but it has been extremely beneficial just to hear how you all are addressing and progressing through the pandemic. I know your departments, your ADs are all fortunate to have you guys leading the development teams. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everybody listening got a lot out of this because I know I did. Grant, welcome back. I know you maybe have some closing remarks, but again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. This was a lot of fun.
You got it. Thanks, Jasmine. And to everyone today, that was wonderful. And just reminding me, we're all in this together, our departments and across the country. We can all learn from each other. So Suzette, Emily, and Jeff, thanks for your time and energy today. And Jasmine, absolutely wonderful job leading us and moderating. Please stay tuned for details regarding our next webinar. It's going to take place on March 18th. The topic is Women's Initiatives, a How-To. Thanks again for joining us today and have a great evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.